Welcome to SAM Conversation, a program of South Asia Monitor. The topic we have for today is radicalization and its spreading tentacles in Bangladesh. It is my pleasure to welcome Mr. Subir Bhaumik, an old friend from the Northeast, presently settled in Kolkata, very senior journalist. Major Gaurav Arya, a very well-known presenter from Republic TV. He's made some excellent programs on the armed forces, in fact, which give which educate the public on what the armed forces are all about. And we have Mr. Jaideep Saikia from Guwahati, a very prolific writer, written many books, and is considered an expert on terrorism and security affairs. I'll make a brief narrative on radicalization as we've seen it in India. We've had it in happening in the Northeast, and then in a very big way in Jammu and Kashmir, which was, I think, the brakes were put on it with the with the 370 being abrogated. At least now we don't hear about it, we don't see it. Let's go back to 1990. United Liberation Front of Assam. This is the outfit which grew during the tenure of the AGP, the Assam Gana Pratishad, and penetrated almost all departments of the state government. And eventually, when the Ulfa under Paresh Barua, a very good footballer of his time, championed, they claimed to champion the cause of the Assamese, who according to them were not being, given their due by Delhi Darbar. Anyhow, once president's rule was clamped in Assam, the Ulfa already come to know about it and they escaped. And where did they escape to? Bangladesh. The very issue of the foreigners, agitation. So in one fell stroke, they let down the Assamese with their act of going to Bangladesh, seeking shelter there. And the moment they got there, they came under the clutches of the Pakistan's ISI, which was in very large strength during the Bangladesh Nationalist Party's tenure. Now, it is the Ulfa that we have to thank for the ISI to enter the northeastern region, not only in Assam, but also in Manipur and Nagaland. They made very good contact with the National Socialist Council of Nagaland, Isaac and Muiva, the Isaac Muiva group, the People's Liberation Army of Manipur, United Liberation Front of, Manipur based, UNLF, United National Liberation Front, and the KYKL. Now, this developed into a very strong relationship. The first change was that from classic insurgents, the Northeast groups, NSC and IM, the Meitei groups, used to be what we classified as classic insurgents. The Ulfa were from the beginning, they were onto terrorism. Their methods of those of terrorists. But with the ISI, coming into contact with all these groups, they all now converted to terrorism. And worst was that a process was effected by which China was now supplying arms to the NSC and IM, the Meitei groups and Ulfa, and also the left-wing extremists. The NSC and IM is supposed to be in, negotiation with the government of India on peace talks which began in 1997. And where these peace talks often, get very, very badly affected is when they start talking about not United Liberation Front of Nagaland, but United Liberation Front of Nagalim. Nagalim meaning Naga inhabited areas of all states, and a separate Naga flag, etc. There's a whole lot more that one can carry on about, but this what I've just stated is that we need to keep a very, very sharp look on the NSCN and the other groups to see what their present links with China are. China is bound to make use of them to keep the pot boiling for us in the Northeast. I will now turn to Jaideep Saikia to what I had mentioned is that radicalization began here. I mentioned the Northeast amply and Jammu Kashmir, but there was radicalization already in pretty strong, carrying on pretty strongly during the tenure of the Bangladesh Nationalist Party. And now, ever since Sheikh Hasina came into power with the Awami League, it's it's raising its head again. There are about 3 groups which are spoiling the show there, and they made it obvious even during Prime Minister Narendra Modi's visit there. It may be recalled that this is the year in which Bangladesh is celebrating 50 years of liberation, which came with the 1971 India-Pakistan War, December 1971 India-Pakistan War, and from 16 December, erstwhile East Pakistan declared itself liberated as Bangladesh. Jaideep, over to you.
Thank you, sir, for giving me this opportunity to be in such illustrious company. I would like to sort of give you a very brief, because of the paucity of time, a brief background about Bangladesh itself, although you have already pointed out about the differences between the Bangladesh Nationalist Party of Khalifa Zia and the present dispensation headed by Sheikh Hasina. my research travels interaction with people from the erstwhile East Pakistan, Bangladesh, and observers of Bangladesh, and also my research in the United States, where I wrote my book, Terror Source Frontiers, Islamist Militants in Northeast, and tells me that there are actually two Bangladeshis, and one which is devoted to Bengali nationalism, and which, as you said, led to the severance of Pakistan and the formation of Bangladesh in the first place. But there is another Bangladesh which is very rapidly Islamist, which is pro-Pakistan, anti-India, and which, to my mind, identifies itself with the global Salafi movement that we have been witnessing, or we're going to witness in the coming years. So, having put that premise in place, I would like to say that radicalization have been on in Pakistan for a long time. You recall that Jamaat-e-Islami actually was against the partition of, the severance of, the creation of Bangladesh. They are very pro-Pakistani, and Dr. Subir Bhaumik will probably add to the knowledge base better than I do. But the fact of the matter is that at this point of time, there is a quietude in that sense as far as the radicalization effort is concerned. You would recall, I'll take you back to 2016, 17, and 18 in Bangladesh, from the hostage taking exercise which they went into, that Holy Artisan Bakery hostage taking situation in Gulshan, Dhaka. That was the first time actually, and I had just been there just a few months before that, in 2016, in March. And this happened on the 1st of July, 2016. Then they sort of proclaimed their allegiance, or bay'ah, oath of allegiance to the Islamic State. When I had meetings with various agencies, security agencies, including the counterterrorism and transnational crime people, the DGFI, the NSI, and people like Farooq Shoban of the Bangladesh Enterprise Institute, who was also the former foreign secretary. At that point of time, when I went there was a denial mode that, Islamic State had not entered, or Al-Qaeda had no footprint in Bangladesh. But later on, after the hostage-taking exercise, although there is still, the jury is still out on whether there was a direct ISIS help or not. But the fact of the matter is, groups started doing a lot of suicide bombings thereafter. We've had cases in 17 and 18 where we've had women suicide bombers with infant on the laps blowing themselves up. And whatever the security forces, and I've been in touch with them because of my close proximity with some of these people, and because I was aiding the establishment here as well, that these people had interesting or important or very active track with the global Salafi movement, that is the Al-Qaeda, Islamic State, or Daesh. As a matter of fact, in 2014, Ayman al-Zawahiri had already proclaimed the formation of the Al-Qaeda in the Indian subcontinent, where he actually named not only Bengal and Burma, but he also named Assam. So half the world, half the war, as far as I'm concerned, when an emir of an important group like Al-Qaeda mentions Assam in a televised interview, you see the people actually get sort of inactivated. But to sort of, fast forward, what's happened now because of the immense pressure which Sheikh Hasina and the government she heads has put on this Islamist. I make a difference between Islamic and Islamist. I've never used the word jihad in any of my books, by the way. But the fact of the matter is that there is now a spillover effect into the northeast, which they abut us very closely. Now, the sheer proximity to Bangladesh means that when they feel the pressure there is a spillover effect to lower Assam districts of Assam and West Bengal. You recall the Burdwan blast, which was an accidental one which we sort of stumbled upon, and that led to an alert Assam police at that point of time, arresting and apprehending a good number of Jamaatul Mujahideen Bangladesh cadres from Barpeta district of Assam. And I've had the good fortune of actually speaking to a few of them, including a female cadre called Sujina Begum. What I'm trying to say, sir, and I'll come back to you later on, is that radicalization has always been there in Bangladesh in fits and starts. And now, exactly a year from now, we will probably witness what I think, or what I term is going to be the third wave of radicalization. The first one actually began in 1999, ended in 2005, and 9/11 was a manifestation of that. The second one, the second wave, began with the coming into being the Neo Caliphate under Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi and the Bay'ah, that is the oath of allegiance which people took for the Caliph, and also the undertaking of the Hijrah to places like Iraq and Syria. But now with the territorial ouster, exactly a year from now, this is my summation and my analysis, that we will witness a third wave. The last point I would make here, sir, is that right now they are quietened. And this is a tactical move. They instead propped up groups like the Hifazat Islami Bangladesh and Islami Andolan Bangladesh. And you yourself referred to the protests that they have took to the streets when our Prime Minister visited Bangladesh on the 25th of March last to celebrate their independence. And they've asked for the enactment of blasphemy laws, for the non-erection of statues, particularly, of Bongo Bandhu, because 2018 was a centenary year for him. And they don't want any statues erected, even the Supreme Court, because they feel it is Islamic. A number of such Islamic laws they want to enact, sir.
Thank you, Jaideep. Mr. Gaurav, Arya,
Sir.
I'm sure you during your service, you seen enough of the Northeast. What are your observations on whatever we've stated so far, Jaideep and I?
Sir, but I've never served in the Northeast, but I travel to Northeast, sir. I've traveled a lot. I have friends in the Northeast, and I have a keen sense of what is happening, at least in Assam now. What has happened in Assam, sir, over a period of time? Of course, West Bengal also. Assam is facing infiltration from two sides, sir. One from Bangladesh and one from West Bengal itself, sir. So, there is now, there are the local Assamese Muslims who are well ingrained. They follow the same culture as the Assamese, mostly, sir, mostly, not 100%, mostly. They'll wear the gamusa, and till 100 years back, they were more ingrained. Now that is getting lesser and lesser. Now you have people coming from Bangladesh who have settled down. And rural Assam is ripe for the picking as far as the jihadists are concerned, because rural Assam has is very the population is very less, but the geographical spread is very much. So in case of Assam, Assam is not a small state, so like most of us would seem to think. Assam is a big state, but with lesser population. So urban centers would have more population like any other urban center in India, but the rural areas now are the areas where they have started to make their mark, also in urban centers. So you have various outfits, various jihadi outfits, which are operating inside Assam. Having said that, sir, there are 2-3 points that I would like to make very quickly. Number one, what are we doing about it? A lot of people I meet in the security apparatus, they say, no, we're doing this and that. It's not visible on ground. It has to be visible, sir. Otherwise, people will keep asking questions, like the famous Balakot bombing, in which we did manage to kill hundreds of terrorists, but nobody saw it. And then the government was scrambling to explain and provide proof to the people because the opposition party said, where is the proof? The thing is that it should be obvious. There is radicalization coming out from mosques, especially in Assam, sir. Obviously in West Bengal, but I'm not talking about West Bengal here, sir, for the now. What I'm saying is there is radicalization coming out from mosques. There is radicalization taking place on the internet in Assam and West Bengal both. Massive, you see, sir, radicalization that is happening. Young girls and boys are being radicalized, and you have scores of YouTube channels, sir, and I know personally of 2-3 YouTube channels, which I would not like to name here, but I know of these YouTube channels which are slowly telling the Assamese people who are known as Desis, the Assamese Muslims. They are colloquially referred to as the Desis there in Assam. That's what I've heard when I went there a few times. Guwahati and beyond
Desis
also.
From Bangladesh?
No, sir. Desis are the local Assamese Muslims, sir.
Local Assamese Muslims, okay.
Local Assamese Muslims, sir. They're referred to as the Desis because they're from the Des, so they're from the country. Yes, so they are own people. So there is a concerted effort. By various sections of radicalizing the Desis, of telling them that your Assamese identity should be subservient, if at all. If it is there, your Assamese identity should be subservient to your larger Islamic identity. That is what is happening in Assam. And not many people, sir, they don't realize that there are 3-4 states. It's no longer Kashmir, sir. It's no longer Kashmir. The next surprise that comes to India will either come from Kerala, it will come from Assam, it will come from West Bengal or one of these states. Because you see, sir, generally what is happening in Assam is that slowly and slowly, these Bangladeshi infiltrators, they're taking over, sir. They're taking over land very fast. There have been 3-4 cases which have been brought to my notice, and I'm speaking with proof, where they have bought all the land surrounding a few Assamese houses, and then they have forced the local Assamese population out to sell their land. If somebody refuses to sell land, then the women are eve teased, the people are beaten up, there is pressure on them whenever they leave their houses. So there is a lot of pressure on the local Assamese who are there, sir. And this is being done by the Bangladeshis. And this radicalization is something that is extremely worrisome, even for the state and the national agencies. And this is something that we need to do. So we are always discussing, this is happening and that is happening. We know all the theories, sir. My question to the larger audience here who's watching this, or who's going to be watching this, is what are we doing on ground? What are the de-radicalization steps that we have actually taken on ground? How much money have we invested? Because if we think that Bangladeshis are going to stop coming into India, so one of the reasons, sir, you're very senior, you would know, so one of the reasons why we went to war with Pakistan in 1971 was infiltration from Bangladesh into India. So the refugees came in. Whether it was
Yes,
good
that's
or
what
it was
Mrs.
bad,
Gandhi asked. That's what Mrs.
Yes,
Gandhi asked Sam Manekshaw. What are you doing
Yes,
about it? He said, doing anything about it will amount to an act of war. So she said,
yes, sir.
little later she discussed it with him. She said, so what? And then it was, anyway, that's a different.
Sir, sir. Yes, sir.
You put across some very valid points, and you made me refer back to my book, Assam, Terrorism and the Demographic Challenge. This is what I wrote in 2008. Before this, when, God bless his soul, Lieutenant General S.K. Sinha was the governor of Assam, he had written a paper to the president that there are at least 5 districts of Assam where the demography shifted. When I wrote this book, it was 2008, by which time 8 districts, the demography shifted. Today, it may be 11 or more. Subir,
yeah.
I now request you to take a long look and an immediate look.
How much time are you giving me?
Look, we normally go by 3 minutes each and at least thrice. So don't give, in one go. Give us three minutes now. You will get at least 2 more 3 minutes again.
That's a bit difficult for me because,
Anyway,
but then I'll follow your rules. Okay. So 3 minutes, okay? No, because the trouble with me is, and Jaideep will agree, is that my database is huge on Bangladesh, and
Yes,
especially the issue you're talking
I'm aware
about.
of it.
For one very thing, wait. No. The one simple reason is that you guys look at the whole issue, as Indians, and, Jaideep may look at it from a very Assam angle. He has been to Bangladesh. But I am from where the place that you are talking about. Yeah. So I understand Bangladesh through my blood. Do you understand this? So, and I have actually run deep sources inside Huji. I can tell you today because one of them is dead. So I have very intimate knowledge of things.
Please, abbreviations. No. Please explain your abbreviation.
No, I will, because certain things for operational reasons can't be taught. But let me come to the major point. Pakistan was an Islamic republic. And Pakistan, after it emerged, did not bargain for what it finally faced. The emergence of very powerful Bengali nationalism. It starts in 1952 with the Bhasha Andolan, and then it submerged this Islamist thing to an extent that finally, when Pakistan had elections in 1970, the Awami League won 168 out of 170 seats. The remaining 2 seats in the hill tracts went to, the tribal independents, who later became PCJSS. So Jamaat-e-Islami, which was backed by Pakistan as an instrument of state, and therefore we have to realize one very simple thing, is that, the Islamist radical element in Bangladesh or East Pakistan was always there. But if you equate that it was also there, Bengali nationalism was also there, I think there's a big problem with that. And we need to understand this. Islamist radicalism in the shape of Jamaat-e-Islami and other smaller parties existed in Pakistan as an instrument of the Pakistani military-run state, and it was a surrogate of the military establishment of Pakistan. It had very little roots in Bengali Muslim society, which had taken a very decisive turn towards a Bengali identity. And this identity, despite the partition, one may sometimes get puzzled that 47 mein mulk ka batwara hua, and then suddenly, within 5 years, how it all changes. But I don't want to get into that history. It's fairly well known. The point I'm trying to make here is that Jamaat-e-Islami was wiped out in 1970 elections, but it still managed to get 10% seat, 10% vote, no seats. Now that element remained. And these are the people who collaborated with the Pakistani occupation forces. I would call them Pakistani army, but my Bangladeshi friends say occupation bolbe, occupation force, because they saw it as an occupation force anyway. The thing is, they were the cohorts, the collaborators, and there were two population groups. One was the Urdu-speaking Muslims who had gone to East Pakistan, especially from UP and Bihar. They were very strongly behind the Pakistan army. And of course, there were some elements of Bengali Muslims as well, who were radicalized, who took religion very seriously. Are you getting me? Because I'm not getting anything on the screen here. But anyway, okay. So, and then it comes Bangladesh independence. And then you have, within 4 years, the coup that kills Sheikh Mujib and unseats Awami League from power. Do you realize that the Awami League was not thrown out of power by elections, by the will of the people? It was a military coup, and then the two military rulers of Bangladesh tried to bring back and legitimize the very defeated forces of 1971. Therefore, one has to realize that the Fifth Amendment of General Zia and General Eshaw's Eighth Amendment, which brings, which declares Bangladesh as an Islamic Republic, actually turned the clock back, and which made my good friend Lawrence Riftfuls right, that Bangladesh, the unfinished revolution. Now, I will come to the current scenario, but I will make 3 points here. There's a huge misunderstanding when people think, and I've seen this, that Pakistan's flag has been raised by Bangladeshis in Assam, all kinds of stories. Bengali Muslims और जो भी करेगा वही पाकिस्तान का फ्लैग नहीं उठाएगा, इतना हम लिख के देते हैं. Oh, very small percentage, Jamaat-e-Islami and please try to realize that the infiltration that happens, the radical element in these people, economic migrants, Bengali farmers, Bengali Muslim farmers, but the radical elements can't. These are the Urdu-speaking people who ran away from Bangladesh after it became independent, because they became targets of the Mukti Bahini and all these pro-liberation forces, because they had sided with the Pakistanis and perpetrated horrible atrocities. I can give you any amount of instances, including one where two Mukti Juddha friends came to Calcutta and they were attacked in the heart of Calcutta. They went for shopping in Metro Gully, Calcutta, and someone said, "Yehi wo hai na Noor, Sala Mukti Force ka commander." So these were two Bihari Muslims who chased them. And they did not realize how can they be attacked 25 years after Bangladesh independence in the heart of Calcutta. Now that brings us to a very important story, which Gaurav Arya tried to raise, which is that a lot of these people who came and radicalized elements, who came to West Bengal, who went to Assam, neighboring states of Bangladesh, after Bangladesh became independent, were not Bengali Muslims. They are the radical elements. There were Bengali Muslims who went because of economic pressures. Bangladesh was a basket case. That was true. It had seen famine, it had seen the ravages of war, and economy was in bad shape. So they would come. But a large number of these radical elements who came were these guys who were driven out of Bangladesh because they were targeted. And in Bangladesh, there are two very bad words. One is Paika, means Pakistani, and one is Bihari. So, broadly, these Urdu-speaking Muslims are called Bihari. Then there is a third element, which is that since 1979, Operation Nagamin in Myanmar and General Zia trying to back some of these Rohingya groups, a lot of Rohingyas have come into Bangladesh. Now, Rohingyas, my dear sister Deepu Modi, who is now the education minister of Bangladesh, and I have a whole lot of sisters who fight these guys out on the streets, Bengali gender power. They are the biggest sort of fighters against these radical elements. But let me come. So Deepu Modi tells me that these Rohingyas, if they come, they are a headache for us, Awami League. They are not Bengalis. The Burmese make them Bengalis. Because the Rohingyas they are a mixed people. They have a strong Arabic element. None of their, I've been to their madrasas and I've been to their maktabs and masjids. Very rare, I have not seen a Bengali speaking Muslim Maulana or an Imam in any of their mosques. It's either the Arabs or the Pakistanis or our own Deobandis there in northern Arakan. And I've been there because I've worked in Myanmar for 3 years and I've been to all these places, and Bangladesh, of course, I worked and I covered long time. So here, let's get one thing right. This Khagragar, all these people. Now, you will have to understand that these people who were kicked out of Bangladesh, particularly after Sheikh Hasina came to power, all these Jamaatul Mujahideen, these radical elements, Huji, you will find that their cadres are basically from these Urdu-speaking people and Rohingyas. Basically, there are some Bengali Muslims, including a couple of women, and if you look behind, you will find that these are Bengali Muslim families who have been Islamized because their family people have gone, they have stayed in Middle East. This is like in Kerala, big radicalizing influence because...
What have you to say on whatever Subir has said so far?
Very briefly, sir, very briefly, I think it's very important to face the situation as it poses itself today. I think I have already spoken about the radicalization of Bangladesh, and I think the matter of concern for us should be what is happening in India and Assam and Northeast. Gaurav Arya has already pointed out that he has visited, and I'm actually from Assam and I'm sitting in Guwahati, so I know the ground situation to an extent. He's very right. In fact, we arrested a lot of JMP cadres, Jamaatul Mujahideen Bangladesh cadres from Barpeta district, which is in the Assam district.
Which organization?
Jamaatul Mujahideen Bangladesh.
Jamaatul, okay.
Which now they are called Neo JMB for a different reason, which I don't want to go now. But what I'm trying to say is that there is a Kerala-based organization called the Popular Front of India, which is making inroads. And for the last about 6 years, the Assam police, which is very alert. I think the present leadership of the Assam police, led by a person called Bhaskar Jyoti Mohanka, is extremely alert. And despite the fact that he is facing a lot of other things, including COVID and Alpha, he is seized of the situation on the ground and has taken on the radicalization efforts by Popular Front of India and the student wing, which is called Campus Front of India. in tandem with something from the Hyderabad-based All India Majlis-e-Ittihad Muslimin. So these Popular Front of India actually have opened up zones in Assam, 3 zones. One is in the Barak Valley, one is the north of the Brahmaputra, one is in the south of the Brahmaputra. And the president is a person who is sitting perhaps 10 kilometers from where I'm speaking. A person
And
called,
how much do you expect their cadres to be?
well, at this point of time, the projection which I think the special branch had made in 2016 was 8,000. So you can imagine the growth which has happened now with this
Well, that is
zones.
8,000
And Popular
is
Front of
huge.
India,
it
sir.
is no mean amount.
Popular Front of India, sir, with the entrance and the territorial ouster of the Daesh or the Islamic State into India by the way of the Walai Hind or Guardians of Hindustan, and with the already existent AQIS headed by Asim Umar, is basically now helping these people. So we are going to witness a kind of a conjoined effort in the exactly a year from now. We are going to see imitation effect by way of suicide bombings, etc., in different parts of India, including in Assam. This is my prognosis for the moment, sir. I do think that because we abut Bangladesh so closely and we have seen suicide bombings there, for whatever reason, a woman blew herself up with the infant on her lap. And when I spoke to people in the National Security Intelligence there, they wrote to me saying, Jaideep Bhai, because the security forces cordoned her, she had nowhere to run, so she exploded herself. My question is, where did she get the explosions to do that? Where did she get the suicide vest to do that? In other words, this sophisticated, we call it the mother of Satan, the explosion which was used in Paris, for instance, have entered erstwhile East Pakistan in a big way, and it is a matter of time. In fact, people seem to say that they have already entered Assam in a big way, and they're waiting for the right moment in the coming year, I would say even earlier, to sort of activate themselves. Right now, as I wrote in my book, sir, in 2004, they're not engaging the security forces because they don't want to attract the attention. They want Lebensraum, they want more cadres to come into their fold. And as I gave you the statistics of the Popular Front of India, 8,000 more in 2018. Now you can imagine what is happening now. And Assam police has also, despite what people are saying, have embarked on certain very innovative methods of actually curtailing this radicalization process by using, as Gaurav says, the indigenous Muslims. For instance, we have sent out people from mosque to mosque so that the Maulvis of the head mullah of the mosque in Assam or in Guwahati can actually go on a signature campaign and de-link themselves from the Daesh or the Islamic State. We have asked people like Nahid Afreen, young Muslim girl who's a very important singer in the national stage, to sing against Islamic State. Quickies, musical theme, movies, etc. have been made by the Assam police, and the present chief of police is a very, very innovative person, and he has taken into account all these aspects that we need the help of the minority community of Assam, which Gaurav calls the Desis. I mean, they are basically located in Upper Assam, and they came almost in 1000 AD with Bakhtiyar Khalzi actually. So, these people have to be incorporated in the fight against this alien agenda, which is already upon us. I would not say is going to be upon us. It's already upon us. It is quite because of various reasons at this point of time.
Gaurav, what is your latest of input from the Northeast on this?
So, actually, there are two things, sir, that I'll keep it short, sir, to less than 3 minutes. My input is what the other two speakers have also said, sir. But I would like to say that our response is unstructured, sir. The response of the Indian state is unstructured. There is a difference of opinion and a difference of, lack of cooperation between various,
okay.
not approach, sir. Yes, sir. There is a lot of one-upmanship, sir. People operate in silos.
Okay,
the left hand does not know what the right hand is doing. And so all these things are there, sir. And this is one thing that we all need to realize, that as far as the state of Assam is concerned, sir, specifically the state of Assam, it is a state that is not in the media highlight or the media limelight, sir. Bengal is, Assam is not. And therefore, a lot of stuff gets done in the state of Assam, which is against national interest, which nobody comes to know because, Assam is part of Seven Sisters, it's part of the Northeast. Northeast mentally always relegated to the background, which it should not be because Assam is a critical state for India's national security, sir. I'm not even talking about the culture, the people, all of which are excellent. I'm talking about from a national security perspective, sir. Assam is critical. What is happening is our response, whatever Jaideep said and whatever Mr. Bhaumik said, everybody, it's absolutely correct, sir. I agree in letter and spirit. But I would also like to add that our response is, he spoke about.
You made it quite clear. Yes.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
May I just quickly interject here?
Yes, Jaideep.
May I quickly interject here, just for a minute, sir?
Yes.
Gaurav says that our response has to be a little more clinical and systematized. He's correct. But at the same time, we in India, for instance, and that includes Assam, and Assam, I think, is a step forward in this direction, continue to sort of, talk about de-radicalization when there is nothing called de-radicalization. Actually, there's no animal called de-radicalization. What I have been saying all along, and I've been talking since 2014 about this, is that you cannot look into a person's mind and say whether he is radicalized or not. There has to be a science which will be in the domain of neuroscience, which will actually tell you. So the only way you can do it is to counter-radicalize him before he gets radicalized. I have spoken to JNB cadres in Assam, sir, and I've realized some of them have not even read the Holy Quran. Forget about misinterpreting it. There have been reports.
That's not new.
Case
That's
studies
not new at all. Yeah.
which emanated from United States Rand Corporation, which says that people have been let off from the Guantanamo Bay because they thought they were de-radicalized, but they've gone back to terrorism and have continued with that. So I think this de-radicalization element doesn't exist. We must, the sooner the better we understand this in the state of Assam and in India, the better it is. Assam, as I said, has begun to understand it, and I'm telling you once again, quite emphatically, the Assam police is seized of this particular concern and are working on innovative methods to correct it and combat it.
So one point I'd like to mention, sir, before just my closing comments, that like Jaideep said, that Assam police is seized. Yes, it is. It's a professional force. It's doing very well. It's very ably led. But my only concern is that we at the center, are we supporting Assam police as much as we should support Assam police, sir? Are we supporting Assam police, sir? Are we telling the Assam police or the government of Assam that, listen, we are with you, we are committing funds, we are committing manpower? Because Assam police will fight, sir. It is their duty, they'll keep on fighting. But what are we doing to help the Assam police? I believe very
Are you
little.
trying to draw some kind of a comparison between the way Jammu Kashmir police is supported to this?
Absolutely, sir. Absolutely. Jammu Kashmir police is supported, sir. Assam police, in spite of the fact that it's an able police, it's a professional police,
Yes.
it's got top class leadership, it is not supported by the center so much as it should be supported. That is what I meant when I said that, Assam does not figure in our consciousness as much as it should figure. JNK, everybody knows, sir. Kerala, everybody knows. West Bengal, everybody knows. Assam, no, it's relegated. And that is what is causing us harm. Assam is a vanguard state as far as national security is concerned, so right there in the front. And we should give importance to Assam.
Okay. Subir, we going back to your earlier narrative, and if I may add, at this stage, what are some firm recommendations that you make for putting some kind of brakes on the radicalization process in the districts of Assam where the demographic shift has taken place?
The battle against Islamic radicalism, and let's face fact, we have other forms of radicalization as well. But, Islamic radicalization or radicalism, the battle has to be fought in Bangladesh and won. So there is no escaping from the fact that you will chase a few JMB here and there in Assam, you are getting nowhere. Let me make it very clear that much as Gaurav Arya is right, he says Assam police must be supported. We have to support Sheikh Hasina, bhai, wahan jang jeetna hai.
No doubt.
No, let me make this clear.
Yes.
So, we should not, say stupid things like Bangladeshis are termites and all this stuff, because then you create a huge swell of anti-Indian sentiment, which is uncalled for. Bangladeshis are the largest component of tourists in India. Do you realize this? 23%. And they spend much more money than your Gorajis. Okay? They're not hash popping stuff. They come here for treatment, they come here for education, they come here for eat time shopping. Because my sisters say that, they get 20 types of sarees here, it's not just Jamdani. So, coming back to the point, three things has to be understood. The battle has to be fought in Bangladesh, and one, you are expecting the thing to spill over into your territory and then react. You are only reacting, you have to be proactive. And Gaurav is absolutely right that there is any kinds of one-upsmanship and all that, partly because most of our people in Delhi don't understand Bangladesh at all. They don't understand the Bengali mind as well. And that shows in the recent election results. You have to understand this. Yeah? So this is number one. Number one is you have to fight the battle in Bangladesh if you are fighting Islamist radicalization in Eastern South Asia. That's where it has to be fought and won. It was won in 1971. It was lost in 75 because the army came in and they, drew upon the Jamaat, all these fundamentalists. You look at the cabinets of General Zia and Ershad, because they had to confront and fight the Awami League, which was a political organization. Awami League is in the heart of the Bengali people. तो उसको रोकने के लिए मुल्ला लोग चाहिए था. अभी, now this brings me to the second observation, and it's very important. There is something called an Islamist ecosystem in Bangladesh. On its own, JMB is nothing. Let me tell you, some suicide vests coming here, this and that, it's not a big deal. This can be tackled. It's not a big deal. This is coming, as Jaideep says, because there is an ecosystem which supports and supplies these people. Now, I will elaborate this. This is my crucial concept, about Bangladesh, which is JMB, Huji will not survive in Bangladesh if there is no BNP and no Jamaat Islami. And if there is now no Hifazat-e-Islam. Now you look at this, this is the continuum. You have a couple of political parties which are of Islamist dispensation, and BNP, when it talks of Bangladesh Jindabad, it basically makes it very clear its nationalism is territorial and Islam driven. It's not Joy Bangla, it's not a secular, Bengali passionate kind of a war cry, which drove the freedom fighters of 71. Here, second thing. So, and then of course you have Jamaat Islami, which is a Pakistani stooge, which was built up by Pakistan. So these are the two political parties which contest elections. Then you have the Hifazat-e-Islam now, which does not contest election, but it controls the Qaumi Madrasa Board, which means it controls 8,000 Qaumi Madrasas in Bangladesh. That's the factory. I have been telling Sheikh Hasina, who calls me Chota Bhai, that Apa, you take West Bengal's example. West Bengal Madrasa education was revolutionized when the left was in power. Islam. I've been telling Sheikh Hasina, Apa, please take this. What? West Bengal Madrasa system. Do you realize 20% Hindus are in madrasas here? Because that madrasas here are teaching physics, they are teaching English, they are teaching computer science. And a lot of Hindus join madrasas here because they realize if they study, normal study ho gaya, साथ में Arabic सीख लिया, Middle East में नौकरी मिल जाएगा. So 20%. I'm giving you a specific figure. I've done stories on this. The thing is, Hifazat-e-Islam has to be driven out not only from the streets of Bangladesh, but from the Qaumi Madrasa Board. And now this fight is on. During Mr. Modi's visit, they are the people who created trouble. BNP and Jamaat did not come in the forefront. One of my sisters, she is Mohila League, that is Awami League Women Wing in Kumilla, where they burned down. You know what did they do? They burned down the music academy, which is in the house of Alauddin Khan, the great Alauddin Khan. That's where the battle is. Do you realize why Huji or Jamaatul Mujahideen, they set up bombs on Bengali New Year Day? Why they set up bombs in Udichi when there is a Rabindra Sangeet performance going on? Because they want to systematically attack the cultural symbols of Bengali nationalism. And they are not able, this is one thing. Awami League may become unpopular as a party for various reasons 10 years in power. But the cultural muscle of Bengali nationalism is very strong. Please get this right. Yeah? And so here Hifazat-e-Islam. Now Hifazat is not an underground party, but it's not somebody which is contesting election. So that is the center of the Islamist ecosystem. The extreme part of the ecosystem is parties like Huji, which was formed in Afghanistan. And the people who formed it, I had a Maulana who was in it, who first told me about Bin Laden in 1996. I had no idea because he had come back to Bangladesh. Sudarshan Sheikh আসতেন আমাদের lecture দিতেন. And I can give you an amazing story. I have written about this actually, but I didn't name him because I convinced him that ये जो आप कर रहे हो इसको बंद करो. Majlis Shura of Huji, you are there. He said, Bhaijan, I have learned two things, this and this. How do I sustain myself? I get 17,000 rupees being a member of the Majlis Shura. शादी किया है, बच्चा हुआ है, कैसे चलेगा? Anyway, coming back to the point, this Huji, Ansarullah Bangla team, Harkat, Jamaatul Mujahideen Bangladesh, now the Neo GMB, they are the extreme element of this Islamist ecosystem. Now, do you realize something? In entire 2006, 2004, 5, when BNP was in power, and in Bangladesh, we call it Khaleda Zia government. In Bangladesh, they always say Khaleda Nizami Sarkar. Why? Because Motiur Rahman Nizami, war criminal, who is now being, hanged. He was a minister. He was a minister of industry, and these 10 trucks of weapons which are coming for Mr. Paresh Barua and others which are intercepted in Chittagong, these were actually the permission for the jetty was given by Motiur Rahman Nizami. He was Jamaat leader, Emir. Point is, we have to first understand the battle has to be fought and won in Bangladesh. Then you don't get this problem. Here, in no spillover. Secondly, you have to understand this Islamist ecosystem. You have to understand the interplay of external forces. When Sheikh Hasina came to power, she activated her agencies. Some of them, very good friends of mine, two of them, Jaideep has also met. In fact, one of them is just calling me now. He's in the NSI, Firoz. Now, these guys intercepted one whole ship full of fake Indian and Bangladesh currencies. Because this is the thing that comes from Middle East, and this would enter through Bangladesh. One Pakistani lady turns up, comes down, 2 huge bags, and then she goes back by the next flight 3 hours later, and the bags are not there. She's arrested. Very simple. There are the external forces in play. There are huge amount of funding that comes in, not so much from Pakistan now because Pakistan ke paas to paisa nahi hai. Imran Khan can't pay his electricity bills in PMO. It's a failed state. But from the Middle East, Rabitat al-Alam al-Islamiyya, Revival of Islamic Heritage Society, Al-Haramin, and I can go on and on. Now, one thing that Bangladesh lacked and for which I am the person, and Jaideep knows it because we were in a meeting in Agartala conclave ke cover mein, ye India Bangladesh, intelligence cooperation ka first process we started it. Mathur Saab came and Commodore Afsar came, and then today even joint interrogation takes place. But the point I'm trying to be, because I was the man who argued for it. You know why? A West Bengal officer or an officer from Delhi knows nothing about Bangladesh. क्या interrogate करेगा? आप जानते हो जिस बंदे को बरपेटा में पकड़ा वो कहां से आया है, क्या है, नहीं है? You don't know his background. So you need a Bangladeshi officer there, basically, who will just catch his collar and tell him, hey Mia, tomar chachar naam ki, and that's how it begins. Yeah, and they don't care so much about human rights. I can tell you that. We have all these hang-ups here. Bangladesh intelligence, they will straight away go for the jugular. But anyway, so these external forces, the play of these external forces in propping up this radicalization, big money, big sponsors. Now, do you realize something? And I'll finish here, Anil. I need to say this very unpalatable thing because Gaurav raised this issue that we are, our decision making is very poor, and I fully agree with him. Salman F. Rahman He is the richest man in Bangladesh, Beg Simko. He is the chief. Now he has a Pakistani wife. He sent his son to study in Karachi. इतना पैसा वाला आदमी अमेरिका भेज सकता था क्यों? Now these guys have infiltrated even the Awami League today. He's an advisor because he's a money bag. He gives a lot of money to, various Awami League people. The threat is not only in the Awami League has he made his entry, but he has got two huge contracts from India. One is this IOC pipeline. वो contract उसको दे रहे हो आप, जिसका petroleum organization is just 3 years old. This man tops the list in Bangladesh in two things. Bank defaulter list, he is the top. Bangladesh Financial Intelligence Unit. And money laundering. And he is a Pakistani element. I can vouch for that. On the 14th of August this last year, his company gives advertisement in independent Bangladesh. He is giving advertisement for celebration of Pakistan Independence Day. इसको हम लोगों ने IOC का पाइपलाइन का कॉन्ट्रैक्ट दिया. अभी जो वैक्सीन बांग्लादेश गया है from Serum Institute, who has signed the contract with Beximco Pharmaceuticals. So we are giving business not to pro-Awami League, not to pro-Indian friends of ours in Bangladesh, not to Square Pharmaceuticals, which is headed by Tapan Chaudhary. We are giving it to this jihadi sponsor. We are giving it to this guy. You know what happened? He threw out my king. No. Gaurav is absolutely right. I am happy that he raised this issue. And therefore, I am trying to substantiate this. My point here, I'll finish here. But my point here is 3 points. First, battle has to be fought and won in Bangladesh. Indira Gandhi was not a fool. She sent Indian troops and so many Indian soldiers died because she knew we needed a friendly Bangladesh. My book, Agartala Doctrine, lays it bare. The idea came from the Tripura Chief Minister, Sachin Singh. When she was asked, how do you tackle the problems of Northeast, Mr. Singh? He said, kick Pakistan out of the East. That was his way of saying. That is the formula. So you have to kick Pakistan out of the, kick all these fundos out of the East. You have to win the battle in Bangladesh. You have to ensure that not just Sheikh Hasina, but all the secular elements there are strengthened. You have to also fight the battle inside Awami League today. And number two, you have to understand this Islamist ecosystem. कि BNP का कोई बंदा एक्स वर्ल्ड बैंक शेख आके आपसे अंग्रेजी में बात कर दिया, आप पिघल जाते हो. And you think, he is a good chap, he is not a fundamentalist. He is the biggest fundamentalist पर है. अब जाके देख लो. तो आपके साथ इंडियन हैंडशेक करके जाता है, वहां जाके चंदा किसको देता है? बांग्लादेश कल्याण पार्टी को. And the third thing is we have to understand these external factors.
I think you put your point across very, very strongly, Subir, and taken that we have to ensure that the Awami League, remains strong, and because that's we know what happened. We know what happened during the long tenure of. One moment, Subir. We know what happened during the long tenure of the Bangladesh Nationalist Party.
Absolutely. And the military rules.
And Sheikh Hasina did a lot to undo that. So we have no doubt about supporting the Awami League in a very, very effective way. Jaideep, winding up comments.
So I have to. I'm sorry to interrupt, sir.
Since you have asked me, sir, I think Dr. Bhaumik is very correct when he says that Bangladesh has to be tackled first as a part. But we are, I think, in Northeast a part of the same ecosystem. I wrote a paper for the Army War College journal, and there I had a small sketch where I said Jawahiri's gaze, and I referred to it right at the beginning to Ayman al-Jawahiri's speech, where he talks about Assam, Bengal, and Burma in the same breath. He also talked about Gujarat. So we must understand that. One point before I hand over the thing, I think Gaurav wants to make an important point, but yes. I just want to make one aspect very clear, which I don't think has gone down to the minders of security or practitioners of security in our country and perhaps even elsewhere. In Assam, as I said, we are a step ahead because of the aptitude with which the Assam police presently sort of goes ahead. Is that when we talk about radicalization, we must understand that radicalization of people happen only 50% of them actually because of religious injunctions and misinterpreting the Holy Quran and the Sharia. I mean, as you know, there are 5 different schools of thought in Islam, starting from the Hanafi, which we practice here in northeastern India, which is moderate, to the Hanbali, which is also the same thing as Salafi and the Wahhabi. But the fact of the matter is 50% of these people are radicalized because they misinterpret the Quran and the holy tenets of the holy text of the Islamist religion. But 50% of them actually are because they are deviant minds. They find a psychological sanctuary in the call of the Arraka or the Neo Caliphate which came into being. They find that, well, there are people which I can imagine who gets up in the morning, doesn't go for a bath or do Surya Namaskar, but actually for no rhyme or reason kicks the dog. So there are people out there who get radicalized and are actually impelled into action, and they love blood and gore. So when we talk about Omar Mateens in Orlando or lone wolf attacks who have not actually ever read the Holy Quran, we're talking about such people. So basically that is why I'm actually trying to propagate this whole concept of counter-radicalization as against the non-existent animal de-radicalization. I rest my case.
Vital for us to make sure that the Awami League stays in power. It's
Okay.
simple. It's very simple. Because that as it even with their staying in power, there's enough of anti-India activity on. But if they are not in power, we know exactly what it was.
Can I come in there? Can I come in, Anil, for a minute?
Very, very briefly.
Yeah.
Very briefly.
Anil, I'll slightly disagree with you. It's no longer just important to have the Awami League in power. Because there are a lot of changes. Bangladesh is emerging as a strong economy. Traders have become very powerful. And a lot of traders are now paying for their election nomination and getting seat. I was telling one of my sisters the other day that the new trend is, if you have money in Bangladesh, you have 4 Begums and then you get an MP nomination. That's just joking, but that's a fact. The thing is, now, which is the biggest economy in this area? China. So a lot of pro-Chinese elements are getting into Awami League as well. So it's not just important to have the Awami League in power. It's important to cleanse the Awami League and help that process.
Yeah.
We must push Sheikh Hasina to actually give nominations to our friends there. Not this pro-Chinese type, not the Salman Rahman type. It's not
okay.
Because they are infiltrating. They are infiltrating the Awami League. Awami League is a big mass party, like the Congress got infiltrated. But so I think it's not just give a blank check that APA will back you, remain in power. We have to tell her you shouldn't do this, you shouldn't do that. We can't dictate her. Obviously, she will never like it because she's Bengali and she's nationalist. But we need to tell her, like Pranab Mukherjee used to do or Jyoti Basu used to do. Try to understand this is the problem. We have to ensure that the right kind of pro-Indian people, and I agree with Jaideep what he said about, these guys who attacked this holy artisan Bekari, Nibras Islam, when they checked, General Mujib, he's now general, he was then brigadier commanding 44th Brigade. He checked his mobile phone. You know what he got? Shraddha Kapoor. It was his life's dream to marry Shraddha Kapoor. That guy is the jihadi is going and shooting. And who did he shoot, He shot my sister, Ishraq. We called her Neela. She was the owner of Dhaka Art Gallery. You know what? She was confronted by these terrorists. And they asked her, who are these Goras with you? He said, Italian and all. Are you Muslim? He said, yes. Why have you not put on the hijab? You know what she said? हिजाब पढ़ार जन्नई देशटा हमरा स्वाधीन करे नहीं ये मुल्क हमने हिजाब पहनने के लिए आजाद नहीं किया है which means what? She's a Bengali woman. So hijab, so, and they shot her. Whenever she came to Calcutta, I had to take her to...
Jaideep, I want a point from you. What will happen now, when the COVID...
Sir, can I? Sir, they're calling again and again.
Okay, thank you. Thank you
sir.
very much,
Gaurav, bye.
Gaurav.
Bye, Gaurav.
All
Thank
the
you.
best to you.
Bye, sir.
All
Thank
the
you.
best.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you, sir.
Jaideep,
Yes, sir.
very briefly, once the this COVID battle has been won, whenever that is, what about the NRC in Assam?
Well, the present government has said that there would be a relook at the National Registers of Citizens. And because there have been some complaints from various quarters.
Yes.
But the fact of the matter is that there's not too much of a human cry. And this new government, which is, I think that's about 16, 17 days old, it was sworn into office on 10th only. So I think they're going to do a bit about that. But as a parting shot, I would say that because of the prevailing situation, that is COVID-19 or COVID-21 as we'll be calling it now, because of the second wave, which will actually coming across Assam and the northeast so heavily. The Assam police and the authorities who are, you see, asking to manage security are seized of these issues as well. That is, first, we're having to talk with the people like Paresh Barua and the Alpha Independent who have asked for a unilateral ceasefire. And in all its wisdom, the new government, and particularly the Assam police leadership, actually is examining these things before going blindly for a ceasefire with the Alpha Independent, like it did in 2016. If you remember, there was a 42-odd-day ceasefire when they were able to recoup, and Paresh Barua and other leadership were able to escape from the Dipru Saikwa bastion, as it were, when the army columns had actually surrounded it. The second thing which I think the Assam police leadership at this point of time is very seized of, as I said again and again, is the question of radicalization. I think Assam is far ahead of its time in the sense in the Indian scenario, and I think the whole concept of counter-radicalization by the Assam police was forwarded far ahead of time before the other states in India try to adopt it, but they have not yet adopted it. The Telangana model has failed, as we know. The Assam police is now actually seized upon this matter, and I hope that they would be able to sort of become a model for the rest of India. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Jaideep. Thank you very much, Subir. It was a pleasure meeting you after a long time and getting all your latest inputs. I think at some stage we will resume and update ourselves on these aspects. Thank you very much, gentlemen.
Thank you,
all
sir.
the best. Stay safe.
Thank you, Anil. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, sir.